Our film begins with Elena standing with her friend Sally as they celebrate Halloween, and they stay in Doc's house, and whoever is the richest one of them, and they will all be in one school by qualifying for the Faculty of Medicine. And the friends of Doc come with a body from the college morgue, and they all stand with Elena and Sally, and those who belong to a certain club of their own. In order to include anyone new to the club, they must give him a test, and whoever is a silly prank, whoever succeeds in it, joins them, and they are waiting for their friend Kenny, and who will be the newest one of them, and they decide that they are seducing him by telling him that there is a girl who agrees to enter into a relationship with him in order to lose his chastity, and the idea is that of Doc, who consults him about Elena, and tells him that she is the one who will enter into a relationship with her, and Kenny is very happy and does not believe himself. Meanwhile, the rest of Doc's friends remain. They prepare the body and darken the room, and then they put a camera in it, and this is to film Kino while he is going through it, and the law of the club remains that every member of it must have a video of the prank in which it is played, and then Peggy Kenny enters the room, and she pretends to us that she is the one who is on the bed and pulls it for her, although she agrees to play the role. She gets annoyed by participating in a silly prank, but she agrees to prefer to be accepted among the club, and the first time Kenny gets close to the body and kisses it, he opens the companions of the light. Kenny was very angry and fell on the ground out of fear, and this is after he sees one dead body in front of his eyes, and the ambulance came to take him, and Kenny, from the severity of the shock, kept talking to himself and asking his friends, if she is good, and you make us feel goosebumps, and she decides to inform the doctors, but Doc threatens her that he will say it was her idea, and he will expose her in all newspapers, and her life will be ruined. Elena is afraid of him, and this is because they consist of a poor family, unlike each one of them, and as the years pass, they come to re-enter the Faculty of Medicine, and they attend Halloween together, and they spend it in their own country, and each one of the club wears different clothes, like Ed, who remains dressed as a clown, and they keep joking and laughing until the supervisor of the country comes, and you ask them to enter and hand over their memories, and before they enter, Ed is left joking with Tom, his friend, and steals a plastic bag from him. On the sidewalk, Ed is pretending that he is dying, and they praise his performance and leave it and enter the country. After a while, someone comes to pull and throw it under the towing wheels, after he takes his clothes and wears them, and he enters the place of Kata's hand. And you show us a hand and greet him, but suddenly a clown, disguised as a knife, comes out of his pocket, and he wants to attack us. But Peggy, her lover, is deaf, and the clown can't kill her. And she completes her way to us and goes to the bar, and there you see the magician who will give them performances on the occasion of Halloween. He blooms with her, tries to get close to her, and invites her to a drink, but Elena tells him that all the drinks are already free, and she leaves him and walks away. On the way, she meets Doc and the one she doesn't like. It appears that he treats her in a brutal manner all the time, after the situation that happened years ago, so she asks him about the location of her lover, and he does not exchange it for her, and you go to us to the room where you like it. But suddenly you find him lying on the ground, dead and bleeding, and you are shocked, Elena, and screaming in fear. But suddenly Mo gets up from his place, and it turns out that Doc and his friends are playing a prank on us, so you are very intolerant of them. With her lover, she walks and leaves them. Meanwhile, Tom is looking for his friend, Ed, until he meets him and asks him about the blood on his stomach. And he finds that his clothes are full of blood, as if he were real, and it remains the same as the blood of the one who was killed by the unknown person. Tom gets very disgusted and tells Lad that he is going to go to the bathroom, so the unknown person enters behind him and locks the bathroom door. Suddenly, he grabs Tom's head and bangs it on the mirror violently, and he kills him, and then he goes out and can lock the bathroom door from the inside. Elsewhere in the country, Doc is sitting with his girlfriend, Sally, and he tries to enter into a relationship with him, but suddenly one of their friends comes and tells them that the magic show has started. So Sally gets up and she is very excited, unlike Doc, who is upset. And everyone attends the performance, and she stands with her lover Mo, Doc, and Sally, and then the magician asks for a volunteer, so Doc proposes to us to annoy her, and she goes out. to the stage with the magician, and the one with my hands in front of her makes a movement that dazzles everyone, and at this time Habiba Eddie comes to whom she keeps looking for in every place and asks him not to go around with her, so he goes not with her, and you see Elena, who is feeling jealous, and she keeps standing in her place, annoyed. After the show, the magician suggests to Elena that she go into a changing room with her, so that they can drink something together. Elena agrees, and this is to let Water get jealous of her. She sits with the magician, who feels that she is from a simple family and different from everyone else in the country, and he says to her, he wishes the train would turn around with them and all the spoiled rich people in it would die, so Elena gets annoyed with him and walks and leaves him. And at this time there is a girl who wants to go to the bathroom and prefers. She knocked on the door, but no one opened it, so she asked the supervisors of the country to open the door, but they suspected that a person might still be using drugs, and they decided that they would not interfere, and this is because all those in the country are Rakia's sons, and they can escape any punishment easily. The supervisor asks the girl to go to the bathroom again, and the locked bathroom remains the same bathroom in which Tom was killed, and it turns out that the unknown person changed his uniform, and take Tom's costume, and whoever looks like a lizard, and in one of the private rooms, he sits with Habiba Ed and a girl as well. It appears that Doc wants to have a relationship with another girl in order to get away from Elena, and he decides to leave them alone in the room and goes out. Habiba Ed gets close to him and still wants to enter into a relationship with him. And in the meantime, you will stay with us in the show. And the magician comes to apologize for what he said while holding a rose in her hand. And in another place, the female supervisor comes to look at the locked bathroom, and you discover that it is still closed, although it has been a long time. She decides to open it. Suddenly, in front of her, she meets Tom, who is murdered and drowned in his blood. And you think it's a prank. But you find out that he is actually dead. So she goes to reach the supervisor of the diameter bigger than her, and the one whose name is Carney, so you give her Carney and she will be sure that it is just a prank, and if she came back, she wouldn't find a body, and you really go back to the supervisor. And you can't find anything, you are very happy and go to the bar. There she meets Elena and tells her what happened. She knows that Doc is the reason, and she fights with him, but Doc assures her that he did nothing, and she does not believe us, and she goes to search for Mo, and reaches the private room where he is not with Ed's girlfriend, and he cannot respond to her. The unknown person is wearing Tom's clothes, so she gets mad at him after she sees Sakina in his hand and says he won't get close to her, and he can't come close, and the unknown person can't do anything. Then he goes to the magician's show and goes to Elena looking for her friendship Sally. At that time Sally sees the same person and asks him to enter into a relationship with each other, and they sit down together on the bed, but the unknown person attacks and kills her. After a while, she meets Elena, the tutor supervisor, and asks her to find Sally her friendship with him, and they reach the room for Sally to be in. They see her dead and think that she is really dead, and she screams at us in terror, and inform the supervisor Carne. At this time, he will not be in the magician's show, and whoever works a trick that he disappears. Suddenly, he sees Doc Mo bleeding from his neck, and he knows it's real, and he tries pick him up. She comes to us and sees her boyfriend dying before her eyes. He decides to find Sally, but Elena tells him that she is dead. Doc doesn't believe what is happening and tells Elena that they are the ones to turn, and the supervisors of the train gather and ask all passengers to take off their masks and be in one place, and this is for their safety. Then the supervisor asks them if there is anyone among them who is not known, but they all know each other. Then Doc asks Elena to go with him to another place, and they decide to lock themselves in a room until they reach the station, and they think about who might want to visit them, and Elena remains sure that what they did to me. He responds to them, and that the person who takes revenge on them was waiting for the moment to bring them together in order to kill them, and then you remember the words of the sorcerer and the one who wished for their death. She suspects that he will take revenge on Kane, the friend, and this because Kenny was a fan of magic shows. Elena decides to go out to warn the rest of her classmates, but Doug is afraid and decides he'd rather be locked up in his place. Elena goes to the supervisor and asks her to investigate the sorcerer. The supervisor is convinced of Elena's words and decides to make her happy, and they turn together. On the magician. At this time, Doc remains in the room. Suddenly, he hears the sound of the video they filmed, and finds a mobile phone in the safe, and then hears the sound again, and finds another mobile phone with the same video on it. So he collapses from fear and keeps apologizing and telling him that he regrets what he did. Suddenly, the unknown person blooms behind him and cuts his neck. After a while, she and the supervisor come to us for a room, and they open the door, but they can't find anyone. Suddenly, they see drops of blood towards the safe. So, they open it and find a severed head. They quickly exited the room, and they know that the killer is targeting Elena and her friends. Since its owners are all dead, so they decide that they protect us, and they let her sleep in private to rest, and the supervisor comes out to finish with a sense of the magician. At this time, the unknown person blooms and enters the room where Elena is. He hits her while she is sleeping with an axe, but discovers that there is no one under the blanket, and she blooms behind the unknown person, hits him and runs away. So he runs after her in the train until she reaches us in an iron cage, and she locks herself in it. So the unknown person takes an iron, and he tries to open the cage, but he and he tries to hit us with it while she is in the cage. But Elena can hold the iron and hit him with it and run away. Suddenly, Kino blooms in front of her, telling her that she is the reason for what happened to him, so she apologizes to Elena and tells him she is remorseful, so he tells her that she does not regret it, as evidenced by the fact that she is still befriending those who were the reason for what happened to him, and before he attacks her, the sorcerer comes to kill him with his gun, and the supervisor comes and they know that the sorcerer is innocent. And they think that everything is over, her friends who died. And suddenly she sees Kenny dressed like a cat, and she thinks that the owner of the costume was with them all the time, and she knows that Kenny is not the killer, and she deduces that the magician is the one who killed her friends, and the presence of Kenny to blame him. And she tells the supervisor what happened and decides to kill the magician herself, and the first time they enter the magician's room, they find him killed, so Elena and everyone in the country collapses. This is because they do not know who the real killer is. And Carney decides to hide Elena in her room to protect her, and you ask who? The second supervisor is to bring the magician's gun so that they can defend themselves with it, and Elena sits with Carney while she is devastated. Suddenly, they hear the sound of her mobile messages, and she knows that there is a network. And before she grabbed her mobile, Karen attacks her, and you tell her that she is the reason for destroying her son's life. And she decided to take revenge on them all. Elena is shocked and tries to defend herself, but Carney is able to stab her with a knife and drag her towards the trailer door to throw her out of it. At this time, the second supervisor arrives and sees what is happening from the door and tries to enter, but she cannot. On the last piece, Elena is able to get up from her place and tear Carney towards the trailer door and throw her from it. Half an hour, the train finally reaches the station, and our nightmare ends, but in the last scene in the movie, and on the railway, we see Carney lying on the ground after she fell from the train, but suddenly she opens her eyes and it appears that she hasn't died yet. And don't forget to subscribe to the Ladybug Synopsis channel.